Evil Twin Skippy, everybody's favorite maker for the purpose of this video. And today I've got a problem. I have a customer who wants a beige xenomorph pod, but Micro Center neither has beige nor anything close to beige, and especially not in ABS. So I could order something on Amazon, but it won't get here until, well past the ship date. Or I can employ the fact that I am married to a crafter, and she has all sorts of nifty ways of coloring resin. So stay tuned for this little adventure in how to make just the right color when you don't have it. So this is our base material. This was printed in a filament called Natural. Essentially, it is ABS without any of the colorants in it. Regular ABS, pure ABS, usually comes in a little whiter. This yellowish brown is from high-speed ABS. Whatever dopants they put in to make it more malleable to being printed in high speed seems to affect the color. That won't matter to us because we're going to be building up the color we want in layers, actually. So we're not necessarily going for beige so much as what the pods looked like in the movie. And we can see that there is a complex set of colors, even on the background ones, that seems to vary with the depth. And that leads me to believe that when Hollywood put this together, they were painting in different layers with different washes. And we're going to recreate that effect so that we get the greens on bottoms, browns on top. And we're going to do that with a technique from model painting called wash. Essentially a very dilute, very thin coat of, in this case, it's going to be resin with alcohol ink. So when we're done with that, I'm going to have to paint it again with a clear, unadulterated coat of the food safe resin to ensure that none of these colors leach into the food. I think it's going to be as fun for me as it is for you, so let's get on to the next part. Okay, so I have my trusty mixing cup, which is just a regular measuring cup that's just been covered in resin as I go. I know from experience that it takes about 30 mil to completely cover this, so we're going to just start mixing up 30 mil, and I'm going to sprinkle in the green. We'll apply the green, and then gradually I'll just mix in more and more of the brown, and hopefully that gives us the effect we're going for. Alright, now I have these pumps that are great because they will just meter out 10 mil at a time, and I don't have to play Dexter with chemistry to try to... If you've never tried to mix resin, you pour it out and try to find that line while you got gloves on. Yeah, it's no fun. Alright. So we're going to mix this up to get it chemically mixed. And then we're going to start. Let's see, we've got peridot, or I don't know, they're two different greens. My instinct says this is probably the better green to go with. So we're just going to try a few drops. So 6 drops, just so we're keeping track. Now my wife has warned me that I'm probably going to need more than I think I'm going to need. But I think this is a good start. So let us start brushing this on and just see how it comes out. Now, unlike in all of my other efforts, I'm actually going to be focused more on the outside than the inside. But here we go. Now, it's just giving me this very subtle green. So I think I'm going to have to splash in a little bit more.
That's a very nice scientific sample there. And this is probably going to be the last ride of this particular measuring cup before I switch to another one, just because I put colorants in it. Alright, so now we've got this much deeper. And let's see how this goes on. Alright, so it is a very subtle color. But maybe that's what we want. Now, because this is going on so thin, I'm going to take my friend ethanol, and we're just going to water this down. To help stretch it. I'm going to add even more color. Okay. So let's mix this around. I've got this soupy gloppy mess that I've built, but I really wanted to kind of soak into all the cracks. Because I really want the inside textures to really pick this up, and for the outsides to be open to whatever the yellow brown we're going to sprinkle on later. There we go. I've got to hold it up because this is just running all over the place, but that's kind of what we want. We want this green to just get into all the cracks and lay the groundwork for whatever the texture is we're going to have on top. And I'm not too worried about the surface. It's just plywood with some parchment paper on top. So, yeah, always, 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 when you're working with resin and coloring, have a surface you don't care about. Or at least a surface that your wife doesn't care about. Or whoever your significant other is in life. Alright. Oh, and if you're wondering what I was mixing in there, that was actually pure alcohol. I usually get it from the hardware store. They sell it as fuel. But essentially it is ethanol with just a little bit of something mixed in to keep you from drinking it. But it is essentially the same solvent they're using here for the food safe resin. Alright, so I'm working my way around this thing, just trying to fill in all the details with this real loose, gloppy, sloppy stuff. Because this is going to go into places, and what we're going to do with the brown coat is we are going to put on something much thinner. And hopefully that will just crowd into different areas. But when the light catches this, it's going to catch different colors at different angles, which is what we want. If you saw in that movie shot, you really couldn't tell what color this thing was because every angle seemed to tell it. It was a brown, it was a green, it was a yellow, it was a white. Okay. So we're all the way around. And I am trying to keep this thing kind of going around like a tumbler. Because I want this stuff to sit differently than the resin that is going to be applied later, that's going to be thicker and have a tendency to follow gravity. To that end, I'm going to prop it up here. We're going to do what we can to make sure this stuff actually drains upside down. Again, so the light catches it differently than when we apply the brown. Okay. So I'm going to go back around everybody and just get really sloppy and gloppy on the bottom and let it drain upward. We're trying to mimic a biological process that was messy at the start. Okay. Okay, now we're just going to get the inside here. Because I know I can't control this stuff from dripping down, I'm just going to go ahead and fill the base with this green drippy stuff. And just slosh it around a little bit. And of course catch the brush hairs that fall off. The nice thing about the creative process is it is not exact. Alright. So we're going to go around. Just going to use up the rest of this resin. And what I'm going to do is put this in my curing oven and just let it go long enough that this stuff sticks in a way that it mixes less with the brown. Remember, this is, even though I've used the food safe resin, this is not a food safe coating because we've added ink to it. But I decided to stick with this food safe coating instead of try a cheaper resin because I don't know how they're going to interact, and I've already done projects where I've layered this food safe coating on top of food safe coating. So I know this stuff works, and that the chemistry of resin is sometimes very unforgiving. Alright, I'm just going to fill in these bits. Alright. I'm going to employ my famous catcher here. Flip this guy upside down. And we're going to let it dry in this upside down position. I'm just going to set my curing oven to maybe 130. All I want to do is speed this up. Actually, we'll do 190. And I'll pick this up in an hour or two when this has a chance to cure. Welcome back. It's been about 20 minutes, half hour later, and I had a stunning thought that as this is setting, if I ever want this pot to unstick from this base, I am going to have to separate them. Now this one was printed in PET G, and as you can see, it is at 190 Fahrenheit. It is quite floppy. But the ABS, no, not even close. All right, now at this point, the resin is super, super, super sticky. But we are getting some of the effects that we were hoping for. We are getting bits of it pooling in certain areas. I'm actually going to take my brush and even some of that out. But I think we are far enough along that we can move on with step 2 of our plan. We also have this really neat organic like vein structure that followed because the resin pooled as it tried to drain out of here. So sometimes you just luck out. So we still have a little bit of the green left from the previous thing. That's fine. I'm going to mix in another batch of 30 ml here. Now this one we are not going to water down at all. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to try mixing in this this color called Dandelion. So it seems like it's kind of a brownish yellow, but it might be what we're going for. So let's take a look at this. Look. All right, so we've mixed it in. You can see a little bit of spilled on the table here, but it is a brownish yellow. Alright, so this is what it looks like on the rag. We'll mix it up and let's see what we get here. Well, it's not exactly beige, but depending on the lighting, it could pass for whatever's going on inside the alien egg chamber. So let's add a little bit here and see what we get. Maybe this is a little too yellow. So let's make this look like it's deliberate. We're just going to go around here. Now you can see that the yellow is indeed sitting in different places than where the green was, because we allowed the green to settle upside down. And the reason why I'm going hard with the yellow here is, if you remember from the picture, this area was almost like dark brown. And then it kind of got lighter as it got away from these lips. We're also going to get this neat drip down the side, which you could see in the movie shot. And now we're going to try to locate a better brown here. Let's see, we've got smoky quartz. Oh, that's hardcore. All right. Mix that up. This is how the smoky quartz with the dandelion yellow is coming out. Now let's see how it goes on. I'm going to apply it to our yellow area first. And it is definitely brown. Now, the difficulty I'm running into is that our green is super sticky. So the brush is sticking if I let it sit too hard. But I think all in all, this kind of sells the effect we're going for. So we're just going to continue on. And if it turns out to be shippable for an Etsy client, great. If not, it'll look awesome on my table. All right, let me show you guys what we're up to here. So we're getting these shades of coolness and detail and just emergent color scheme. And I might not use this whole pot of resin. But as I suspected, the thicker stuff is sitting on top while the green sat underneath. And we are getting the effect that the brown is sitting in different spots than where the green is, and at different angles you get a different impression of what color this thing is. Let's get our tentacles nice and go from here. And again, I got a covering on the table, so I don't care if the table gets a little sloppy. All right. All right. And you know that drip you saw in the corner of every one of those shots was probably caused by exactly what we did right here. Okay. I'm going to turn the piece so I can see what's going on. All right. And again, I don't have to be 100% consistent, because I'm mimicking a biological life form that itself is probably not 100% consistent. Alright, we're just going to give these tentacles an extra coating of brown. These corners an extra coating of brown. Just really commit to the piece here. Okay, I'm going to put this guy in the oven again. I'm just going to double check the bottom to make sure that got not an even coverage, but just no bare spots. All right. Here's what we have close up. Keep in mind that this is still living and dripping. And the inside is our piece de resistance. We've got this beautiful veiny pattern that I wasn't even trying for, but totally sells the piece. All right, I'm going to put this back on my hot plate here, my drain plate here, and let this guy go for about 15-20 minutes to just fire off the curing process, and also allow the resin we put on to get like super liquidy, because it gets super liquidy at a high temperature. And we'll check on this guy another half hour, see how it's coming out, and figure out if we want it to cure all the way or just go ahead and apply the final clear coat. All right, catch you in a little bit. Okay, well, I have this pot of maybe 10 mil of resin that I'm never going to be able to use. I also have all these little sprinkles of bits of resin that have fallen off of other pieces, and because I know I'm going to be putting another coat of clear on top of this, I'm going to take my sprinkles, put them at the bottom here, and I'm going to take my brown resin and just give this thing a bottom. And all those stray bits of resin, what they're going to do is make this bottom look pretty cool with occasional clear spots and whatnot. At the very least, break up the texture of the even machined pattern that was there. At the very least, it looks kind of gross and biological, which is the effect we're going for. Let me do this without wrecking my camera. There we go. This is what we have. And again, it's going to get a coat of clear coat on top, but it kind of gives you the idea that there's this set of guts at the bottom. Now we're not going to let this sit too long because I don't want the piece bonding to that thing I have to catch the resin. But catch you in a few.
All right, we are about half an hour later, and let's just see how everything's turning out. Okay. So I have transferred it onto the parchment paper, just because I was worried about it sticking to the drain mat. We're going to have some resin along the bottom that I'm going to have to Dremel off, or hopefully it just looks tasteful. Our spectrum of green and brown is making this look more like a Little Shop of Horrors than the Xenomorph pod. So I think I may have to go back around it with brown, but if you look real close, the colors seem to be mixing a little bit, and weirdly enough, the green seems to be dominating over the brown where it gets a chance. So I'm going to let this cure And I think what we're going to end up doing is going back over it with another coat of the yellow or the brown, just to take this a few shades closer to where we want to be as far as beige goes. Overall, I am kind of happy with the way that the detail is coming out. And we also don't seem to have a whole lot of bubbles down at the bottom, which is good. I was worried about that. But here you can see at a half an hour, our what was gloppy is no longer. And that's because the curing process has well started, because the green stuff has been sitting for an hour, and the brown stuff has been sitting at an elevated temperature for half an hour. So we're going to check back in on this project in a little bit, and what we're going to do is basically put another coat of yellow on it to try to make that green be a little browner, and hopefully that'll carry us over to the final color that we want. All right, I'll catch you guys in a bit. Hey, it's been a few hours, so let's see how our friend here is doing. We are pretty stuck onto the parchment paper, but the nice thing is the parchment paper doesn't stick back. Okay, so it's a little greener than I'd like, but we know how to fix that. Right now it's dry to the touch because it's been in the curing oven for several hours at a very high temperature. And I don't see any signs of like some massive bubbles. The stuff all the way at the bottom is solidifying nicely. We have a few bits of the chips I threw in there that have stuck to the side, but they're just going to get wrapped around whatever resin we put on here. So I think what I'm going to do is give this a wash of yellow, as thick as I can make it. And all we're going to do is just try to turn this green tint just a little browner. And then I'm just going to put it right back in the oven, and we will put a clear coat on it next, regardless of what it is, because I just don't want to go too thick on this this resin. All right, so give me a minute to gear up, and let's move on.
Okay, now back to crappy audio. We're going to start again. Now you can see that the stuff that hasn't been sitting in the oven is still kind of tacky and sticky. That's the power of having a curing oven. So we're going to start with another 30 mil. And we're going to brown this guy up. So let's see how we do with the dandelion first. Because I'm just trying to take the edge off this green. Let's mix around a bit. And I didn't clean the cup out from last time, so we still have some semi-cured resin at the bottom that's giving me these brown chunks and inclusions. But I'm going to see if that's going to play to our advantage here. This is all an experiment. Alright, this brush I was hoping we'd be able to keep reusing, but it is solid, so let's grab a fresh one. And right now, everything here is like super tacky because there's like semi-cured resin everywhere. So, gloves, mask, life is good. Alright. So let's brush this on and see how we're doing. I think this might be a tad yellow for what we're going for. That's not the end of the world. We know how to deal with that. Also, I want to see, does this brown take out a little bit of the green? No. If anything, it's making the green stand out a little bit better. So, we're going to go mix ourselves up a little more brown. Alright, so this is red. This is our brown. Alright. We're going to go super brown. Okay. We mix, we mix, we mix, we mix. Alright. Now let's see what we get. Okay, that's more what we were going for. I should have just started with brown to begin with. Alright. So we still have the greenish tinges. We're just basically turning it into a brownish green instead of a greenish green. And with this particular thing, it's okay to be a little gloppy, because we're trying to replicate something that was all covered in slime to begin with, so... Oh, losing some brush hairs here. Oh, and that one is now in the material. It's okay. Alright. So I slap these up real good. I'm going to go along the outside. I'm using a different technique here. I don't want brush strokes. I want this to be splotchy. Okay. Stuff dripping down this way. Let's paint these tentacles at the bottom. Alright, I have made this browner. I haven't lost the green, but that might not be a bad thing. Alright, so I'm going to let this guy sit for a little bit, and then as the resin thickens up, I'm going to apply it in a thicker band around here on these lips of this orifice. And then hopefully that gives us a thicker, different texture than what we got going on here. I will see what's going on. Now, of course, this is a giant mess. Be prepared. Okay. Alright, and we'll check back in a few.
Alright, it's been about 20 minutes. Didn't want this stuff to sit for too long out here before we either did something with it or decided not to. To keep my brush wet, I've just had it immersed in ethanol just to keep it, pliant. And you can see that the resin has soaked out of it into the cup here. All right, so let's see how this bad boy's doing. I flipped it over so that when it decided to mobilize, it mobilized downward. And we are getting some decidedly evil phenomenon here. So we had a pool of the brown stuff and it sat. So we have to remove that before it gets too comfortable, because we do not want that on our final piece. The nice thing is we're working with that resin before it sets, so we've got a half a chance of salvaging this. Okay, so not my brightest idea. We have managed to take it to be a little less green. I'm glad I looked at this before it got too far. Okay. There we go. At this stage, we can take our ethanol and get in there and break up the solid bits. Well, that's going to be in a real critical part of the piece. So I want to make sure those parts end up basically solid brown. Or I'm going to have to do a lot of sanding. Alright, so this one, I want you to come loose. Alright, but overall, we have gotten this a little bit browner. We still have some white spots, which actually works for the look we were going for. This glove has basically picked up the brown bits, so we're going to just get fresh gloves. It's fine. All right. So my strategy here Okay. We have these solid brown bits that the resin dripped into and tried to form a solid foot. So we're going to remove as much as we can, and we're going to go back over that with this now very thickened brown resin. And we're just going to try to clean up any of these sharp edges we created, because that's not going to look good on the finished piece. All right. So this stuff is now much, much, much thicker. Essentially, we're in damage control here. We're just going to try to make whatever we did here look natural. Okay. Right now the resin has solidified to the point it's not quite toffee, but it's definitely maple syrup. I'm going to drop the temperature on our oven here so that we're just controlling the humidity. So like 104 Fahrenheit. So that we're controlling the humidity, but we're not trying to make the resin set any faster than it would otherwise. I mean, it's going to set faster, but I don't want it to flow the way it has been flowing. All right. Now, where practical, I'm going to try to get these solid bits off of here. I could clean it up with a sander later, but I would prefer not to, especially not at the top. Hey, what did Bob Ross always say? There's no mistakes. We just have happy accidents. I'm going back over with the brown to keep these inner appendages so they look consistent, so it doesn't look like I've splattered paint on there or I've got paint drips. The drips on the inside are okay because they look almost organic. Okay. So I'm going to put this back in the oven for a few minutes more, and we are going to let this cure. I think I'm just going to take the rest of what's in here, do one last coating around the inside of our lippy thingies. I'm just going to leave this to sit in the heat. And anything that's left, when I give this a good brushing, we're just going to pour down the bottom. Because this stuff is just about spent. Okay. Into the oven we go. And with luck, that looks decent by the time we're done. Yep, having one of those teachable moments in arts and crafts. My little Cupo solvent that was supposed to keep my brush clean fell over. And I now have to scoop up all this stuff because, yeah, while it's mostly alcohol, it's also a tiny bit of resin. And anything that this is soaked into is going to solidify and basically bond to whatever surface ends up. So I'm going to have to clean up this entire surface and get it cleaned up. I've already mopped up the bottom of the little ink organizer. So let me get to that. Maybe I'll just fast forward so you guys can enjoy the Schadenfreude. All right, and with that crisis solved, we have our next crisis, and that is basically all that brown that I dribbled on to the piece. I've got some real big dribbles that I really don't like. So we are going to use the last of our brush here to clean that up. I'm just going to brush horizontally. Back around. Make sure it's all stuff that we want to see. It doesn't have to be 100% consistent, but definitely paint streaks are not a good look. I'll take this goop we had laid on in the inside here. Give that a little bit more alcohol to work with. I'm just gonna make sure we got a nice, even, consistent coat with no lumps. Okay. All right, so this is what we've got in the end. I'm not 100% happy with it, but I'll send some pictures to the client to see if that's going to meet what they were looking for. I mean, it's definitely something, and it could definitely find a home somewhere. But there we go. An experiment.